Well, this is it, the final race of Formula Challenge Season 1. We're here for round 4, but the rerun, because if you remember a few weeks ago, unfortunately this race couldn't happen. So we're here to redo it, and just so happens we've got a championship battle on our hands as well. So we've waited a little while for this race, but we're soon going to find out who are the two drivers and also the two teams to be qualifying for the next season of Formula Pro, powered by TraxionGG. Myself, Cameron Roger, bringing you through the action today, along with Zach Sweeney, as with last time out as well. And it's been a very eventful season. It's been very, the races, they've just been pure chaos, to be honest. And I'm sure we're going to see the same again today. But Zach, welcome to Indianapolis. And I think once again, we're going to be set up for a really good race here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, massive championship implications. We've still got, I think, something like 3 or 4 drivers still in contention, and with an outside shot of the title. Of course, Mojek does look pretty good, but then again, never ever say never when it comes to motorsport. And I mean, there's a little bit of drizzle in the air, Cam. We've got that little bit of a chance of rain that will certainly spice things up.
Oh, the rain would certainly make quite a big change because, there is about a 21% chance of rain. Obviously, that could happen at any time. We're going to be going into the qualifying session very shortly. But these guys, they've got to be prepared for that. And considering it looks like qualifying is going to be dry, maybe the drivers are going to go for a more dry setup. Whereas if it then turns a bit wet in the race, that could cause a few challenges for them, but I'm sure they're going to be sorting that one out. But Zach, last time in Monza, we saw an incredible strategy from David Mojek to try and basically do a stop less than everyone else, and it kind of worked because it was very chaotic. But in the end, he and Noah Roivers actually ended up getting penalties in that race as well. So the penalties, I think, are going to be what's going to stop maybe 1 or 2 drivers from advancing as well, because it's just that tight in the championship.
It is, and last time out in Monza, there was, it was very close between all the rivals, but as you say, the penalties did play a massive factor. So it is just about keeping yourself out of trouble, keeping your nose clean, and that is definitely easier said than done. But if you are in for a shot at the title, especially if your name is Mojek, you need to keep that nose clean. Just do what you need to do. I believe he just needs to finish inside the top 7 in order to wrap it up. And, you do not want to be throwing that away. Just getting a silly penalty, something small like making a slight bit of contact or something like that, because at the end of the day, it's him going and being promoted up into pro.
Well, it certainly is, and the way that this works is basically the top 2 drivers in the championship. They will effectively qualify their team for Formula Pro, because Formula Pro is a team-based championship. So the 2 bottom teams, which I believe was Jean Alesi and Musto, they both got relegated from Formula Pro, and then that leaves 2 teams to be able to get themselves up there. One of them is Zancho Simsport, but I do believe that Arne Schumble is actually not racing here today, so he isn't really going to be in for a shout of the championship. It looks like it's going to be between David Mojek, Noah Roivers and Laurent Kiersmakers as well, although anything can happen, and I'm sure we'll find out. But we have hit the qualifying session, so we'll go through the championship implications in a few minutes' time, but let's see what these drivers can do. And so far it is Brent Holm leading the way with a 1 minute 4.9.
Yeah, just getting that banker time in. Of course, they've got around about 16, pretty much 17 minutes left to go in this session. Just get a safe banker time in, just don't push it too hard for the first couple laps, because you do not want to be purely depending on that final lap to go all or nothing. And at least now, if you get a decent one in, then it's not going to be too bad if you sort of bottle your final lap. But here is Vagianis in the Motorsport Games car coming down this back straight. And we've got the benefit of DRS. We've got 2 DRS zones here, Cam. It is a tough circuit to overtake. It's not somewhere you typically see many, sends up the inside or things like that. But the 2 DRS zones will definitely help in the race.
Oh, the DRS is going to be quite a big factor here. If you remember when this race didn't happen the first time, we did basically have like an exhibition race effectively, so it's just sort of an open session. We actually saw a really good race there, and I think that is going to be setting us up for a really good event today, as Vagianis comes around the final corner. Where's he going to put himself? A 4.3 actually, so he's going to go on pole position at the moment by over half a second. But yeah, that turn 1 and turn 7, the 2 braking zones at the end of the DRS straights, I think they're going to be some of the more crucial places, because the corners here, they're quite sort of slow speed, tight and twisty, it's a bit difficult to really get that much of an edge, but using those DRS zones to your benefit is going to be very important indeed. But don't remember that you do have to wait till the third lap of the race before that is activated.
For sure. So it is just going to be about making sure you stay within that 1 second range, making sure you stay close enough in order to benefit from the DRS and, of course, the slipstream as well, because you need every little tiny advantage that you can get around here, making sure you're close enough of the exit of turn 14 down the pit straight towards turn 1. And, how do you set up your car? Of course, this circuit is going to be a very aerodynamically demanding circuit, a lot of slow speeds, a lot of sort of medium speeds, and, of course, the high-speed S's as well. But you are going to lean on the tires a lot. You're going to lean and rely on the aerodynamics. But how much straight line speed can you afford to scrape off? Because at the end of the day, if you're sitting duck down the straight, it doesn't matter how good you are in the corners. You can't really go for an overtake mid corner.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of the drivers here running pretty low wings. To be honest, the straights, they're actually pretty long, and even if you sort of count the corner of, I think it's turn 11, it's really a straight, which is turn 2 of the oval banking as well. So basically 3 straights around here, and the corners themselves, they are, as you said, they're sort of tight and twisty, so you don't really need the high speed downforce. So I think you'll get away with a little bit lower wing. And as you say, if you're sitting duck on the straight, you're just going to be overtaken, and you don't really want to be the one guy who's running the high wings on a day where people are going to be flying past you. So do look out for some pretty high top speed, actually, especially with the slipstream once we get into the race session as well. And hopefully we're going to get a couple of drivers doing some laps in a moment. But one reason why they're not at the moment is because they are limited to 2 hot laps effectively. So 6 total laps, but that includes your out lap and then your in lap as well. So effectively 2 hot laps is what you get. So a lot of the drivers will be waiting towards the end of the session when there's some more grip, some more rubber down on the surface, and they can try and get a bit of a faster time, just gaining those extra couple of tenths here and there. There's someone coming out is Carlos Martin, who's been improving as the season goes on. And if he is lucky enough to get his team entered next year, he might be going up to Formula Pro, because his teammate Noah Rovers is looking pretty good to get one of those slots. But obviously, Rovers needs to take a teammate with him, so I'm sure Carlos Martin will be putting his name in the hat for that one.
Sure, all of the NetRX guys, to be fair, have done a great job. They've all played the team game really well. You look back to Monza in qualifying, they were giving each other a lovely bit of slipstream that, of course, benefited the entire team. So yeah, Rovers, Martin, Rainey. Well, Rovers is the one that's going to be trying to take the team forward and up in towards pro. But yeah, between Martin and Rainey, it's going to be proven which one does deserve to go up. Rainey is an incredible driver, so too is Martin. They have both proven themselves. But for Martin, yeah, today is going to be the biggest deciding factor as to whether or not he gets the call up, I suppose. He just needs to get his head down, do what he needs to do in qualifying. And as you say, just wait for that track to improve. Lay down some rubber on your first lap. Wait for everyone else to then do theirs. And then over time, the more rubber down on the track, the more sticky that track's going to be, the more speed you can carry through the corners. But purple to the first sector for Carlos Martin by just under 0.08 of a second. He's now coming through the tight and twisty infield section towards the sort of the end of the lap, and he is still furthermore purple on Vagianis. Bit of a snap though, he has really been squirming on this lap as the Spaniard, and now through the final corner and towards the line. What is it going to be? Oh, I say towards the line. He's got one more chicane to negotiate, and then it's towards the line. But yeah, Vagianis already 5 tenths clear of Brantham and Millwood, and Carlos Martin is looking to pretty much smash that out of the park as he comes now across the line. Shortest run as possible, just keep it tight to the right hand side. No need to extend the track more than you need to, and across the line 4 tenths up on Vagianis, around a 1:03 lap time. That is sensational.
Yeah, that is a good lap indeed. And Vagianis, he's actually been doing pretty well to be honest. He's sitting 10th place in the standings, which is not too bad. Funnily enough, only 1 place behind Carlos Martin and 1 point behind him as well. So that's going to be quite a close battle today between those two in their championship positions, as Blasco goes up into 4th place, but a good couple of seconds off. So he's going to hopefully find some more pace. And now we come to another one of the NetRX drivers, Adam Rainey. He got pole position back at the Zandvoort Grand Prix. Unfortunately, that race, the results at least, got basically nullified, so it did actually count for anything in the end, but he will still be taking the confidence that he got from that one, and he's going to go purple in the first sector as well. And he's actually sitting 6th place with sort of an outside shot of the of getting into the top 2 himself if everything goes catastrophic for the guys ahead. So let's see what he can do, but he's lost a little bit of time in that second sector.
He has, he's gone green, so he's set a decent one, but not compared to those in front of him. He just needs to sort of get his head down. He's still got one sector to go, and of course this is just going to be one of those banker lap times that he can sort of then base his final run off later on when the track has sort of gotten a little bit quicker. It is nice to have that base, just to sort of work off and see how much you're up. We're going to see what he does now as he comes across the line. Well, it was fastest, 83 thousandths of a second. It's a NetRex 1-2. They are looking mightily quick as Fabian Bale now across the line. What can he do? Where can he put himself and across the line? It's going to be P4, so decent lap times getting set in these early stages, but it is very much all provisional at this stage. But Martin already on another outlap.
I can't knock it, because sometimes when you're in the rhythm of driving, once you come in, you just want to go in, refuel, go straight back out for your second lap, because the adrenaline's pumping, you're in the zone. And to be honest, the grip, it is going to gain you a little bit, but it's not going to be, half a second. It may just be a tenth here or there that you get, just that little bit more confidence in certain corners. And Martin's certainly reeling the neck of this Formula Pro car, coming out onto the back straight, and he's already just shy of half a tenth up, coming through that first sector. But this sector 2 is so important, because this is where the more high-speed corners are on this track, through the fast S's section, through 8 and 9, and then into probably one of the most difficult corners, this right-hander out onto the old oval, but he's gained another tenth there in the middle sector, so he's looking good as he comes towards the end of the lap. I did see a bit of traffic just up ahead, so hopefully he manages to not actually get too much interference from that car, maybe even the tiniest bit of slipstream actually for those extra few thousandths of a second coming out of the final corner. Where is Carlos Martin going to put himself? This is his final qualifying lap. Where is he going to be? He's going to be into the 1 minute 3s, and it's a 3.698, and he's going to go clear by 2/10 of a second.
Very, very good lap indeed. 2/10. I mean, Rainey and everyone behind him still has their laps to do, but he's setting himself up well. And even if it doesn't get him pole, it will definitely see himself at least in the top 4, I think. So yeah, Martin and Rainey in these early stages looking pretty damn good. Aidan Millwood, another driver who's going to want to impress. He has sort of been impressing throughout the season, but again, you always want to end the season on a high. Always get yourself up there and sort of impress. He's slightly down by just over 2.5 tenths to the first sector. But again, I don't think he's particularly interested maybe in pole position. I mean, everyone's interested in pole position, but he knows who he's racing. And if he can, sort of establish himself in the midfield, I'm sure he's going to be pretty damn happy with that one. But yeah, Aidan Millwood, if he can sort of chase his best result for the last race of the season, he's then got that confidence going into next, knowing that he's ended it on a high. Because if you end the season on a low, you've had a bad race, you then carry that mentality into the first round. And, even it has a knock-on effect from season to season.
Well, it certainly does, and I think that's going to be a decent result. P4 for him. Lost a little bit too much time in that final sector, and unfortunately, that's going to be him out of laps as well. So he's going to have to sit and wait to see what he does with all the other cars behind. But remember, we still haven't seen laps from Rovers, Keersmakers, Mocek, Spork, even Lopez. They're probably going to be up there as well. Even Paris is down there in P15 at the moment. But he is out for his lap at the moment. But we'll take a look at Kevin Morville for the Goodyear Racing default car coming out of the final corner. He's going to be probably looking to be around that P6 area towards Brantholm's time. Where is he going to put himself? P7, just shy of Brantholm in the final sector, losing a little bit more time. And here is one of the championship contenders, Noah Rovers, coming out for his first lap, getting a little bit wiggly as he comes out onto the back straight.
Yeah, just sort of really pushing the car. Not powerful to the first sector, just marginally off 25 thousandths of a second. But for Rovers, he needs to do everything in his power to make sure he can win this championship. He needs preferably to win, of course, that massive point gain that you get for winning the race, something like 5 points. And in such a tight and close championship, it's 11 points between himself and Mrocek. So he needs to win the race. He goes purple to the middle sector. That's definitely going to help him on his run towards pole position if he can get there. But yeah, he just doesn't want a twitchy car. It might help him in qualifying, getting that clip angle, getting the car turned in, using the brakes, whatever. But if he's going to be slipping and sliding in the race and you're sort of wearing out your tyres a bit too much, it won't help. Let's see where he puts himself for his first run, though. One of the main championship protagonists across the line goes fastest. It's a NetRex 1-2-3, but he's put himself ahead of Martin by just over 1.5 tenths. So that was a decent lap for Rovers, and he's trying to make his statement and maybe get into the head of Mrocek. Maybe say, I'm going to win this race, so you better hope that you get yourself in the top 7.
Let's see what Priest can do now. Only P4 for him, 0.444 seconds behind, so all the fours. And then Kiersmakers actually jumps up there into second place, just 1/10 off. So the two Edge guys are starting to show their speed. Spork as well, getting up there. So that is looking really good for those drivers at the moment. Only 1.5 tenths separating the top four drivers, as we just had a flurry of laps coming in there. So yeah, the Edge guys looking like they're going to be challenging as well. And Kiersmakers as well, he's really in with a shout of winning this, or maybe not the championship as such, because he's a little bit behind Mocek like Rovers, but at least getting into the top two. There's only 2 points between Rovers and Kiersmakers, and there's only 1/10 between them at the moment on track. So yeah, looking like it's going to be set up for a really close finish of the season.
It is certainly anyone's game when it comes to it, and never ever say never in motorsport, because anything can happen. There's a billion different variables that can happen. Getting tangled up on lap one, getting tangled up in your pit window, coming out in traffic, anything can change the swing of the race. And such as we saw last time out in Monza, a differing strategy can really spice things up. We saw it come down to the wire last time, and yeah, so Kiersmakers definitely has got a shot in this, but he needs to make sure he sets himself up now in qualifying, and then furthermore in the race, where that is where the main points are going to be scored. This is Fabian Bell, his second and final run across the line. Where can he put himself? Did he improve? He did. I don't think it was enough to improve his position. He stays at P9. And this is Aronia to start his lap. So yeah, 4 minutes left in qualifying. We're still yet to see a lap from Mocek. He's really, really waiting a long while for this.
Yeah, he wants every last little thousandth of a second from the extra grip that he's going to be getting. And to be honest, it's not too bad of a tactic, really, because if you think since Carlos Martin finished his laps, just think about how many total laps have been done after that. So Mocek's going to definitely have a good grip, but Hona, look at that, almost 2/10 up in that first sector. This is looking like a blinding lap from him so far as we come through the S's section to finish sector 2. Where is he going to put himself in sector 2? Only 34 thousandths of a second down. So if he can hold this might be him going onto the front row of the grid as he comes around into this final section. Such a tricky little sequence of corners, huge curbs on the inside, and then this really awkward, super late apex of the penultimate corner before the final flat out corner to come to the line. Very short lap here at Indianapolis. Let's see what he can do. Opening up the DRS. Is he going to go on to provisional pole position? No, he's only going to be P5. He's lost almost half a second in that final sector. He's going to be a bit disappointed with that, but let's see what he does on his next lap.
It was a very promising first and second sector, but it all just came undone in the third sector, where you really have to hook up. Maybe it got to his head, something happened, but yeah, Robin Panzer, the best esport across the line. Where can he put himself? And well, I think one of them, but this is Mocek across the line. This is who we're really looking at. It's only P8 Cam, 6/10 off provisional pole, and he's outside the top 7. He needs to maximize this race. This is Ruvers trying to extend his gap of pole position, can't do so. And then Jim Paraisis currently P7. Let's see if he can improve upon his final lap across the line. It's P5, 2/10 off. Kiersmakers though, purple in the first and second sector.
Oh, this is going to be a huge lap from Kiersmakers. He got pole position back at the Nürburgring as well, so we know he is certainly a very fast driver indeed, been up there in all of the races, which is why he's in contention for one of those slots. What can he do as he comes towards the line? Is he going to get that pole position? Yes, he is, even going slightly slower, still 2/10 of a second out the front. Now Colin Spork for Team Redline come into the final corner. He was the fastest qualifier in the pre-qualifiers to get yourself into split 1 before the season even started. Can he return that qualifying speed, which he's lacked a little bit so far this season, up to P2 on the front row, but still over 1.5 tenths of Kiersmakers. That was a huge lap by Kiersmakers. Let's see what Mocek can do. He's still got 1 lap to go, and Blasco across the line, he's going to be in 15th there, but I'm surprised by the 2 burst cars really. Panzer, I think maybe he got a cut track on his lap, so it wasn't valid, which is why he didn't actually get that recorded on the timesheets. But also Mocek a little bit low down, 8/10 off from what we're expecting as Brantholm comes across the line. He's going to stay in P12. But yeah, I'm expecting something quite big from the 2 burst cars as they come for their final lap shortly.
They really need to hook this last lap up together. Mocek, he's left this final lap all or nothing now. It's going to be either up there with the guys at the front or P8 at the best. It's a very, very close qualifying grid. That is to be expected because it is a shorter lap. There's not much opportunity to make up that time you have lost. So Mocek, yeah, he just needs to absolutely go for it. His championship is on the line here. I mean, he's probably got a top 2 maybe in the bag, but we can't say that much yet. It is pretty much anyone's game. The top 4 very, very close indeed. So yeah, Mocek needs to maximize this lap. 8/10 though, around a 1:03 lap time. That is a huge ask, but I think if anyone can do it, it's him.
Certainly, he's been very fast all season, which is obviously why he's leading the championship coming into this final race. So let's see what he does coming into turn number 1. Got to really not actually touch the curb in turn 1. It's so big. And then turn 2 is really more awkward than it really should be. But then coming easily flat out through turn 3 into turn 4, where you really need to carry the speed because it goes all the way through the flat out chicane onto the back straight. And let's see where he is at personal best, but still almost 2/10 off in that first sector. Let's see how this goes, because that is quite some time that he needs to get back if he wants to be up on the front row. But just remember, he really needs to finish in the top 7 as Morville now coming across the line. He's going to stay there in P13. And now back to Mocek, 3/10 down in that middle sector. Zach, I don't think it's going to be too good of a position for him.
Unless he can pull something absolutely magical through this final sector. Yeah, Mocek doesn't look good for pole position at all. Of course, the race is a different story. It is many more laps than the one quick lap in qualifying. We know how good Mocek is in the race. And that top 7 does rely on the fact if Ruvers actually wins the race across the line. He stays 8th. So that's going to be it for Mocek, the championship leader, outside of that top 7 bubble that he needs to secure the championship. But again, as I say, it does rely on Ruvers and Kiersmakers actually winning this race. This is Robin Panzer, the other Burst Esports. Both cars seem to be struggling, and he puts himself just behind his teammates. So it seems to be an issue with both cars. Maybe the setup doesn't seem to be suited to qualify.
Yeah, it is potentially a setup thing, because if you look at the teams at the top, you got obviously both Edge guys up there, Netrex as well, and I'm pretty sure Spork is at least friendly, let's say, with like the likes of Kiersmakers and that. So I think there's certainly, a group going on at the front, and Burst being that little bit behind is a bit interesting, because back in the Formula Pro series here, bear in mind that race was in the wet. Michi Hoyer, Yannis Simic had a very good race there. But here is the qualifying results. Kiersmakers getting pole by over 1/10.5 from Colin Spork, then Noah Roivers as well, with Carlos Martin in 4th and Jim Priestis in 5th. But that is very important for Noah Roivers to get himself up there. He and Kiersmakers only 2 points apart, and they're both chasing down David Mocek, who had a bad qualifying session there in P8. So I do think this is set up for a really exciting 45-minute race that we're going to get very shortly. But just to confirm the final pass of the grid here, Aidan Millward there in 11th, Fabian Baller, then Danov Brantholm, Kevin Morville, Andrea Zampini and Adrian Blasco, rounding out the 16-car field here for the final race of the Formula Challenge series powered by TraxionGG. And here is the state of the championship that we've been talking about. So 11 points for David Mocek, which is pretty much the difference between 1st and 7th place. So really the top 7 is what he needs to be looking at today. That is assuming that Noah Roivers wins the race. If not, then obviously Mocek can have a little bit more leeway, because there is a 1-point gap between 1st and 2nd, so he won't need to finish in the top 11. So that's really the place that Mocek needs to do. But I'm pretty sure Zaki's going to want to finish the season on a high and not just scraping through to that championship.
Well, I mean, winning the championship would very much be ending the season on a high. I mean, it does help, but I get what you mean. You want to end the season off doing well in the race, as opposed to just sort of doing enough for the championship. You want to go above and beyond. But the thing is, he's in that midfield. It's going to be hard, realistically, for him to pull anything major off if he can sort of, he just needs to keep his nose clean. He's in that midfield. Well, I say, yeah, pretty much smack bang in the middle of the field. In towards turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. That first sector is incredibly tight and twisty, especially when there's an entire field of cars going through. And, he can get swallowed up. It's just as easy for him to go forwards as it is to go backwards. Just keep his nose clean. Don't go for any rash judgments. Don't go for any moves. And just, make a couple of places. Get yourself comfortably 7th, 6th. Secure it. So then, at least then it's down to Ruvers to do it himself, and then Mocek is all his to lose.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult situation to be in, but I think probably because obviously there is a champion, of course, but really it's the top 2 drivers that we need to care about. And if you look at how close that is, Roivers, Schumli, okay, he's not here today, but then Kiersmakers as well, all separated by just 2 points. Even Priestis is only another 6 behind them. So it's going to be very interesting indeed. But this is what we're racing for, the road to Formula Pro Season 2, which will obviously be coming up in a couple of months' time. So the top 2 drivers will basically take their team with them up into the Formula Pro Championship Season 2, and they will be replacing the bottom 2 teams of Formula Pro Season 1, who have now been demoted. And then in the competition system on rFactor 2, every race, your results from the previous races in Formula Challenge sort of bump you up with a split system to make sure that everyone is getting pushed up, so you're effectively racing people around your level, and it's always taking your previous 2 results to try and keep it sort of up to date and relevant. So obviously all the drivers here today would have earned themselves a place in Split 1. For instance, Aidan Millward, we've said before, he started the season in Split 2, did pretty good, and then he's got himself into Split 1. So when we get to Season 2 of Formula Challenge, make sure you look out on the competition system to get yourself involved, and then maybe you'll be racing in Formula Pro. Who knows? But here is the format for today. We just had the 20-minute qualifying session, but now Parc Fermé is enabled, and this is very important because if we do get some rain later, you won't be able to change anything, of course, apart from really your front wing when you're racing. So that could have a bit of a play, and drivers are allowed to start the they have to start the race on their qualifying tyres, but pit stops are mandatory, so they can do whatever they want in the race. 45-minute race, and I think, Zach, with some rain in the air, this might make the fuel strategies a little bit interesting, because if you only take enough fuel that you have to pit, and then as soon as you pit 2 laps later it rains and you have to come in again, you're basically making yourself do an extra pit stop. So I think the strategy is going to be very important today.
It is. The driver's going to want to delay and postpone that pit stop as long as they can, purely because of the risk. As you say, you don't want to make an unnecessary pit stop, come in, refuel the car, and then come out, and then it starts raining. You have to come in for a set of wet tyres straight away, and you're just going to, exacerbate the situation you've got there. So yeah, with this chance, it does spice things up in terms of the strategy front as well as the championship implications. We have got a very good race on our hands. We've got a lot of, we've got Kears makers, we've got Ruvers at the front as well. We've got Mocek sort of in the midfield. So if you are just tuning in, definitely stay around, get some popcorn, whatever it might be, because it is going to be an absolutely incredible finale on our hands. But yeah, the Parc Fermé as well, it does make a difference, because that setup, you want these cars to be as low as possible, as low as you possibly can to the ground, really. And when it starts raining, you are literally just going to become a boat. You're going to aquaplane so much under braking. It's going to hurt the car so much, and just make it so much more twitchy. So yeah, maybe drivers have taken that into account during qualifying, just because of that risk. Maybe lose a couple of tenths here in qualifying, just in case it rains. It might not. It's still something around a 20-25% chance of rain, but it is still a chance.
Well, it certainly is. But let's take a look back at the season we've had so far, all the way back in July now. So almost 3 months ago, we started at Spa-Francorchamps, and we had a very chaotic race there before going to Silverstone, Nürburgring, Zandvoort, which unfortunately the result didn't actually count towards the championship. So it's actually only going to be a 5-race championship with Monza and now the rerun of Indianapolis as well. So that's going to be, I think quite a major factor really, is that only 5 results actually are counting towards this. So if any of your races have been bad, then that's really going to hinder your chances, because it's so easy to lose points, and in 5 races you're not going to be able to gain that back very easily, which is why we've seen the likes of Rovers, Kears makers and Mocek up there all the time, because they've just been so consistent, making sure they're getting those top results.
Consistency is key, but those race wins, the 5-point gap between first and second, it's huge, and it means that finishing second every race, you're going to build up a huge gap. You're going to be a huge amount of points behind first place at the start of it. So yes, consistency is good, but if you can bag 1 or 2 race wins, it just helps you that much more. And that's exactly what Mocek has done. He's built that gap to help him into this final round. So it's now his to lose. He's got a big enough margin that he can just sort of secure a decent midfield position. That top 7, of course, provided Ruvers wins. So yeah, he's got it fairly comfortably, as comfortable as you pretty much would like it in this final round. But again, he's in the midfield. Anything can happen.
Well, he certainly is, and that's one thing that almost hindered his race back in Monza a couple of weeks ago. He basically did a 0-stop strategy in a dry race. So he started the race with the full 45 minutes worth of fuel. So he was really heavy and about second a lap or so slower than the pack. So he just kept on getting overtaken and overtaken. He was getting involved with the midfield battles And that really lost him a lot of time. And the only reason that he ended up getting a decent result in the end was that his teammate Robin Panzer, on the same strategy, basically held up the guys behind, because obviously they had to overtake Panzer before they could get to Mrocek, who was obviously leading the race because he hadn't made the pit stop. So those strategy calls are going to be very important, especially for him, because if he's in a bit of traffic, there's not much he can do, because you can't just necessarily pit early, because obviously the fuel window is only in a certain place. And I wouldn't be surprised actually if a lot of these drivers, as we were saying a few minutes ago, are filling their car up a little bit heavier maybe than they would have wanted, rather than just splitting the race down the middle and doing around 22-23 minutes before your pit stop. I think we might see a lot of drivers maybe taking 30-35 minutes worth of fuel, trying to get a bit further on, so if it does rain, then they have a bit more open strategy. But it's just so hard to say, because you want to be fast, so you don't want to carry the fuel, but then if it works out better in the strategy, then you're going to be maybe losing quite a bit of time. So it's going to be a difficult choice for these drivers, and that is obviously the fun of why we come to these races. And 45 minutes is still a long time for you to be able to work out your race if you have a bit of a bad start.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered a sprint, I would say, by most standards, but it is still a relatively long time. If you have a spin or something goes wrong, you have that time to rectify it, as long as you have got that pace. We've seen it before, and people can still, make them recovery drives, but again, it's just easier to not put yourself in that position. But yeah, the strategy, there's just so many variables on a normal day, let alone one like this, where we've got the championship, we've got the chance of rain as well, as we've said. That's, again, just going to make drivers think twice about how much fuel they put in, and just maybe not necessarily second guess, but it is going to mean there's a big divide in terms of the field strategy. And some people will get it right, some people will get it wrong, some people will get it really right, and some people will just fall behind so much if the rain does hit. You can either look like a hero or zero, and that is sometimes very fine margins. Two very similar strategies can actually have two very different outcomes depending on if and when the rain hits.
Yeah, we don't know if there's going to be rain, but there's definitely a chance of rain. And to be honest, I'm kind of hoping it's going to come, because it made for a very interesting race in Formula Pro here at the Brickyard, but also in Formula Challenge back at Zandvoort. It was actually Davin Mrocek on that day who ended up winning it was almost by a minute. He was miles up the road from everyone else, got the strategy right on that day. So let's see if he can do it again, but it's certainly going to be a difficult race for these drivers to try and make sure they're getting a good finish of the season. It's been obviously effectively the 7th race for these drivers, but this is only going to be the 5th one that is counting for them. So let's see who is going to be coming out on top. Remember, it's the top 2 drivers in the championship that we really need to focus on, and we'll try and get the updated standings after the race to try and let you know at least who is going to be provisionally going through. There could always be post-race penalties, as we saw after the previous race as well, and the drivers will be trying to avoid getting those penalties, because even if it's only like a 10-second penalty, there could be a good 3 or 4 drivers in that time. So let's see the starting grid for the final race of the season. Laurent Kirsmakers alongside Colin Spork on the front row, and then Noah Roivers and Carlos Martin for an all Netrex second row. Look out for those 2 drivers trying to get themselves into Formula Pro next season. Then we have Jim Parisis and Lopez Arjona there for 5th and 6th, before Adam Rainey and David Mrocek round out the top 8. And Mrocek, remember, is your championship leader as we stand. Robin Panzer and Panos Vagianis round out the top 10, before Aidan Millward and Fabian Bella for the top 12. And then on the final page of the day is going to be Danov Brandholm, Kevin Morville, Andrea Zampini and Adrian Blasco rounding out the grid here at the Brickyard for the round 4 rerun of Formula Challenge. And let's see what these drivers can do. I think Zach, is going to be quite a difficult race, but you're never going to win the race in the first corner, but it's certainly a very tight sector 1, so I think we might see a little bit of carnage, but hopefully not as bad as we've seen at other circuits.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, Monza was pretty chaotic in terms of the start, but that is to be expected at Monza. You can't win a race on lap 1. You can certainly lose it, though. I mean, no, they say you can't win the race on lap 1, but if you can get a very crucial move done, Indianapolis as we've said, it's not the easiest track to get an overtake done. So if you can get it done on the first lap and then just sort of set yourself up better, if you can gain a couple of places, it stops you being sort of held up in that sort of squabble. So for Maricek, he's going to want to get a good start, get himself up a couple of places just to avoid the threat from behind, because once you're in that train and you're stuck behind people, you're then having to look forwards to try and get through, then look behind to not let other people through. So yeah, you know, be careful on lap 1, but don't be too careful that you lose places.
Yeah, these drivers, especially the ones who are really fighting for the top spots, I'm sure they're getting very sort of nervous now. It's always a difficult time, even when you're starting at the front. I mean, Keersmakers, he's put himself in such a good position. He did this at the Nürburgring, put himself in a perfect position to win the race, but then he sped in the pit lane, got a penalty, and then on that day, that's how Davin Rocek won the race. So it is about to start, but it's also about executing your race. As we get Blasco rounding out the grid for the final time this season for the Formula Challenge Series powered by TraxionGG. And now let's see who is going to come out on top as we head towards turn number 1. It's going to be a very tense end of the season. We need to find out who the top 2 are and who is going to be getting themselves into Formula Pro Season 2. And it is lights out. Let's see who's going to get the best launch. Keersmakers will have the inside. Oh, there's already been contact, and that is one of the cars into the wall. Can't quite see who it is. I think it's Jim Paresis, actually. And now we're going to see his teammate, Keersmakers, coming into turn number 1 with a nice, comfortable lead. And Royver's there around the outside of Spork, actually. He's going to be getting himself up into P2, so Spork's lost out. But Arjona's actually going to be battling them as we come towards the end of Sector 1, coming out onto the back straight. And for the top guys, at least, it looked like a really good start. Mocek already up into P6, but Paresis looks like he's already going to be dropping down the field quite a bit.
Yeah, unfortunate start for him down into P12, but an ideal start for Mocek. He's done what he needed to do. He's got himself up into P6, and he's definitely established himself in the midfield. Right now, he will, no matter what Rivers or Keersmakers do, win the championship. But overall, a relatively clean start, of course, for Paresis. Not what he'd have wanted. A big amount of damage sustained to his front end, and he's going to have to repair that. And of course, he's going to be losing a lot of time because it's a long run back to the pit lane, especially when you've got no front wing. But for Keersmakers and Rovers, both of them doing a great job. But for Keersmakers, he's got no pressure from Rovers behind, who's 6/10 back. He's going to be nice and tucked up in the slipstream, and we need to wait until lap 3. But that is Aronia, I think, going defensive from Martin for 4th place in towards turn 1. You can see Aronia having to go defensive. Martin's going to squeeze him all the way in towards turn 1. I think Martin is ahead going in. We can't quite see it. Aronia, though, claims the corner. Martin gets squeezed off the track a little bit, but for the most part, they've kept it quite clean. But yeah, Aronia just not at all conceding this place. He wants to try and chase after Spork for the podium.
He certainly is, and you can see the gap that's forming just ahead of him before you get Mocek and Rainey just behind them. Carlos Martin, before even the DRS gets into play, he's getting a good slipstream now round the outside. Such a tricky corner, but that'll give him the inside for the next one. But he's going to go on the grass, and this is going to leave Mocek really oh no, he's hit his teammate. Adam Rainey's got involved there as well. That is awful for Netrex, because they've just taken 2 of their drivers out of the race, or at least out of the points at the moment. And now Rainey's going to have to try and come back. He's dropped quite a way down behind Robin Panzer there, down into 15th.
That was a huge crash between the 2 Netrex guys. Going to take a replay of it. I think Lopez, oh no, this is the start. This is what happened to Paresis. We saw he gets a decent launch, in fact, and I think the Netrex just sort of comes across. No, it's Aronia. Just comes across him. Doesn't expect him to sort of be there, I think. We're going to see from Adam Rainey's perspective. Just gets a good launch, tries to go through the middle, just completely ignores that Paresis is there. And that sent him into the wall. That is just how sensitive these cars are. But lucky for Rainey, that could have definitely tagged him up. And in fact, a couple laps later, it would have tagged him up. I think this is in towards, yeah, this is what Aronia just completely pushed him off the track. Then the Netrex, no grip out there on the grass. Rainey takes off.
Yeah, that's so unlucky for Netrex, because Carlos Martin, he was sort of pushed off the track just a little bit there by Arjona, and unfortunately, obviously, once your rear wheels get on the grass, you're just going to be going for a little bit of a spin. As we jump to Robin Panzer, he didn't have the start that he wanted. He started in 9th place, dropped down to 15th, and now back up into 13th place. So he's obviously had an issue somewhere. As well, always, Blasco goes for a bit of a spin in the same corner, actually, as Carlos Martin did 1 lap ago. This time, though, on his own, and unfortunately that has let Adam Rainey through for P14.
Yeah, so Adam Rainey definitely on a charge. He's a good driver. He had a decent start, in fact, and Rovers actually setting the pace earlier, 104.636. He is keeping Keersmakers honest. When I went to lap 3, he will get the benefit of that drag reduction system. Should help him with a good probably 20 kph down that back straight. Of course, 2 DRS zones, one down the pit straight and the one down in towards the heavy braking zone of turn 7. So He's got 2 opportunities to do it. It's just about staying within that 1 second range, making sure he benefits off that DRS, and of course also that slipstream. We're on board now with Brandthom, who's in the fight for P6. Another replay. We're just going to take a look. This is Robin Panzar's view of the start. You see just in front, Parisis gets all sorts of swamped, and then Panzar just says, thank you very much. I think this is the outside of Adam Rainey towards turn 1. It was a very chaotic start. Luckily, we didn't have a huge pile-up or anything like that. And then Adam Rainey just a little bit too deep in towards turn 1. Panzar up the inside, and again, it's just how sensitive these cars are. One bit of contact, and you get sent spinning.
Yeah, he's very unfortunate there with just the way the contact went on his front axle, pushed him round, and Blasco there just spinning up the rears on the exit there of turn 7. And Panzar looked like they were actually 3 wide. There was someone on the inside as they went into turn number 2. And unfortunately, 3 into 1 doesn't really go. And we come back to Carlos Martin now. So he's back up into the top 10, so it's not too bad, but he's got all these cars ahead of him now that he needs to try and re-overtake to get his position back to where he wanted. He's only about 5 seconds or so, 6 seconds behind Lopez Arjona, so we'll have to see how this goes for him. But overtaking these cars is certainly going to lose him some time. And first of all, it is Kevin Morville, which look at the exit that Martin got. Even before they exited the corner, he was looking to be in a good position, but does he have... No, he was just too close, actually. So he didn't really get the benefit of the slipstream because he was too close, didn't have that slingshot effect, and didn't have the overspeed into the braking zone, so he's going to have to try again, but this is certainly holding the Spaniard up.
He's going to be quite frustrated. He's going to want to get through, but of course, Morville in front did have the benefit of his own DRS to Brandthom in front. And that just didn't allow Martin to benefit as much as he wanted to. He's practically pushing him through Sector 3. You can just see how close he is getting, and he's given himself that best run as possible onto this back straight. He is a little bit too close, as you said, but if he wants to launch up the inside, I'm sure he's more than capable to closing, but I don't think this pit straight is long enough for him to actually launch a move, and he's going to be starting to get a little bit frustrated, and the more frustrated you get, the more the desperation starts to sort of creep in. He's going to have another go on the run towards turn 7, but I think as long as Morville gets the DRS in front, it's going to be enough for him to hang on. Just look at how close Martin is, though, through and towards turn 5 and 6, over the curbs, trying to maximise that exit as best he can. He's going to have another look, but just look, he's not going anywhere, even with DRS and slipstream. He's not closing, and I think maybe he just needs to lift off a little bit and use that backwards momentum, use that slingshot, as you said, Cam.
Let's see the replay of Noah Roivers here. Colin Spork and Keersmakers ahead of him, and he's going to pull over to the left and then back to the right as they all try and get a slipstream. It's a really long run actually down to the braking zone for turn number 1. They're just going to do a nice braking maneuver around the outside, leaves him plenty of room on the apex, and just slides in to the racing line there in turn 2. So that is how you do a start here at Indianapolis. But back to Carlos Martin, and he's already moved up to P9, so someone's obviously had a bit of an issue somewhere. Let's see if he's got enough. We did see this in Monza, actually. Nerex being a little bit slower on the straights. So I wonder if maybe they got a little bit more wing, maybe just a little bit of a different, maybe a ride height setup on that car as well, having a bit more drag, but then obviously more downforce in the corners. You can certainly see how quick he is coming through the corner there, turn 4, and then into 5 and 6. Is he going to have a chance this time, or is he just not really going to work? Actually, Morville's lost DRS this time, so that could be an opportunity for Martin to try and dive it down the inside, but no, not quite strong enough on the brakes, and this will certainly be getting a little bit frustrating for him as we come on board with Brandholm. And this is actually ahead of that battle that we're looking at with Morville and Martin behind. And is he going to go for a bit of a spin or have maybe a different issue here coming towards? That's just going to come into the pit lane. So I wonder if he's had a bit of an issue there. We haven't quite seen. Actually, he's going to pull over, and not quite sure what's going on here, but certainly a few issues that are stopping him from driving.
Yeah, just not quite sure, but it is going to allow Martin to close the gap a lot quicker. Morville is lacking that extra bit of help from the car in front, but still Martin just can't close the gap. Going to look sort of to the inside, fill Morville's mirrors, and just try and sort of spot his braking point, but Brandthom has in fact DNF, maybe some hardware issue or something, because he didn't have a spin or any contact or whatever, so maybe a couple of screen freezes or something along those lines. This is Mrocek, the championship leader, and as it stands will be the championship winner on the back of Lopez. He is within the DRS range. He's 6 tenths back. So for him, it was a dream start, and all three of the top three drivers, all within DRS of each other. Kizmaker's 5 tenths back is Ruvers, and then just shy of a second is Spork. So Spork's hanging on in there, and then between Lopez and Mrocek, it is going to be the battle for P4. And can we just talk about Aidan Millward from 11th on the grid up into P6, another driver that if you just keep your nose clean, he's really set himself up there now in the midfield in P6.
Yeah, 45 minutes is certainly long enough that if you, as you say, keep your nose clean, you'll be getting some good results. And Millward, he's done that a few times already, even back a bit later. Oh, actually, first of all, we'll see what Carlos Martin can do coming out the final corner. He's obviously had a really good run there on Morville in the final sector. But let's see, Morville, even without the DRS, is able to hold on there. So I think Morville is running a lot less downforce than Martin. Although Martin on the brakes sends it down the inside. Is he going to get his nose alongside? Not quite enough. He's going to have to save the rear, just losing a little bit on the apex. But yeah, through the corners, Martin is just so much quicker. He's going to dive it down the inside now of turn number 4. Is there going to be a bit of contact? No, not. But Morville now losing the rear end a bit as we come out onto the back straight. That's going to slow him down a bit. But will Martin have enough? We've seen this a few times before. He gets right under the rear wing. But is he going to have enough to dive it down the inside into turn number 7 on the brakes? We've seen him dive into turn number 1, and he does so in turn number 7. He's finally passed, but he's got a good 3-4 seconds ahead of him now, and he's obviously lost a bit of time there, but Morville can't hold on any longer.
No, unfortunately not. This is Mrocek on the back of Lopez, still within that DRS range. But I think Mrocek might just take a little bit of a patient ride in getting past Lopez, because we've seen with the Netrex guys that Lopez has definitely gotten his elbows out in this race. Mrocek might just sort of go for an easy move if possible. You can see Lopez going defensive when he probably might not need to. I mean, Mrocek does close very, very quickly, more so than Martin did. He's going to set him up, maybe just try and set this move up as best he can, because Lopez is defending and he wants that P4, wants to stick him behind as best he can. Just going to have a quick replay. This is Martin on Morville in towards turn 1, did send it, but just got caught up on that curb. So Morville used that momentum around the outside, and this battle raged on for quite a while. Had that drive, just look, he's not catching though, so he's going to purely have to depend on his brake pedal. Sends it up the inside, gets it stopped, claims the corner, and that was jobs are good. But I think that was a couple of laps in the making.
Yeah, he had to work for that, did Martin, and he's already 1.5 seconds up the road from Morville, so certainly, faster driver at this point in the race. As we come back to this battle between Lopez and Mrocek, this is such a difficult position for Mrocek, because where he's sitting now, mathematically, is enough for the championship, because at the moment he's going to lose 9 points to Kearsmakers, and he's got an 11-point gap, so he's safe. But those guys are getting up the road. And if anything happens at all, any sort of issue, you obviously want to just put yourself in a good position at this point in the race. So if he gets past Lopez, he could fill that 7-second gap ahead and, just have a nice, comfortable race. But racing with Lopez, we know he's such a hard racer. Yeah, very difficult position for Mrocek to be in. But let's come back to Adam Rainey now, trying to recover, trying to get past Fabian Balla here, coming down into turn number 1. He's actually going to have a little bit of an easier time there than his teammate did. So I wonder if there's maybe a difference there of setup. Who knows? We'll have to find out maybe a little bit later on, because we need to see now what Rainey can do with Robin Panzer, who's also back up into the top 10.
Yeah, Rainey just on a recovery drive. I mean, he did, he didn't actually have the best of starts, to be honest. But then again, it was just made worse by his teammate getting sent onto the grass by Lopez and then losing control, sending him off, which definitely wasn't ideal. Aronia, though, going deep in towards the last couple of corners that will allow Mrocek to close the gap and get a really good run down this pit straight. He's going to have the DRS. Lopez doesn't have the benefit of that in front of him, and we've seen how slippery Mrocek is in a straight line. Aronia already going hard to the inside, pretty much to the wall. Mrocek to the left-hand side is going to be the long way round. How late can he brake? He is ahead before the corner. Lopez, though, going to send it double front lockup. He's going to try and take the track away from the championship leader, who is sent off, but he comes back up the inside, and Mrocek is going to take the position, though Lopez comes back through the inside of turn 3, down the inside of turn 4, and he's holding on to this position very, very well. And Mrocek just had to say, well, this is a championship at stake. I do not want to be fighting too hard over 4th place.
That was I can't even tell you how risky that was from Mrocek. The amount of times we've seen drivers go side by side through turn 1, then as you come into turn 2, the person on the outside basically turns into the apex a little bit too early, clips them, and then you're getting a crash. I really thought they were going to continue that, but fortunately they managed to get around it. Lopez, you see just how hard of a defender it is. You can't give him any millimeter more than you have to, and yeah. Such a hard place for Mrocek now, because he's now being caught by Millward behind. So it's one of those things where he really needs to get past, but he also doesn't want to just sit and then potentially lose positions as well. So he needs to try and work out the best place to try and get past him.
Yeah, and Millwood is closing, so the harder they fight, the more they fight, the more Millwood is going to close the gap. And well, Millwood, he's not fighting for any championship, he just wants to do as best he can, and if he does see an opportunity, he will probably go for it. So yeah, Mocek, he needs to be patient, but at the same time, he can't be too patient, as you say, to lose positions behind. But Lopez, he's a driver that you do need to be patient with. And what's happened here, this is Panzer and Rainey going, well, both of them having issues. That is a car without a rear wing, and I have a feeling they might have come together. Maybe Panzer went round and collected Rainey, but either way, both of them are into the pit lane, both of them probably with a significant amount of damage. I think this is going to just see the replay of it. This is Mocek, no, this is Mocek on Lopez to the long way around. He definitely got this move done relatively cleanly, but Lopez, just look how brave he is on that brake pedal, really cadence braking in, making sure he doesn't lock up too much. Bit of a contact with the front left to the front right of Mocek, and then he comes back at him to the inside. So it was a great bit of racing, probably the cleanest we've seen from Lopez, but still elbows out, and Mocek just didn't want to risk it. But I'm very curious as to what's happened between Panzer and Rainey.
I have a feeling, looking at where they were on the track and the type of damage, I wonder if Rainey has just rear-ended Panzer into... Oh, no, he hasn't. Oh, no. So what is going on here then? Oh, a bit of a lag moment there for Panzer. And Rainey, nothing he could do there. I thought that was going to be into the braking zone or the corner previously, but that's such a shame, those two drivers. And Robin, he's hoping that he's going to be able to repair that. I do believe... excuse me, I do believe that can be repaired. It's just he's going to be sitting there for such a long time. He's going to be laps and laps down, and that's really put him out of contention for some decent points today, which is such a shame. Also for Rainey was in such a good position in the championship as well. He was P6, the car ahead of him. Jim Priestis is obviously sort of struggling a little bit today, so he could have had an opportunity there. But anyway, let's go back to the battle for the lead of the race. Keersmakers is under threat here from Noah Roivers. These two only separated by 2 points in the championship, and really they're fighting for a place in Formula Pro. So this is really where the heat's at. But also Colin Spork is in the back here, ready to pick up any scraps.
Yeah, it is definitely a battle for who gets promoted in towards Pro. Roivers is going to want it. So too is Keersmakers. He's tucked up in the slipstream, and the DRS, of course, is going to be helping him along. Spork's just sat there. He's the third car on the train. He wants this race win, and he's not really got anything to say in terms of the championship. But Keersmakers, yeah, just trying to make that car as wide as possible, limit the slipstream that Roivers is going to get. And 6 tenths between them. These three, it's just been a sort of a 3-horse race at the front. You can see they're 13 seconds ahead of Mocek behind. These three, they've just been absolute tyrants. They've completely dominated this race for the pretty much the entirety of this first stint. Keersmaker's going slightly deep in towards turn 12, and this is going to put Roivers on the back of him. He just needs to maximize that exit. Keersmakers doesn't have any help in front. He's going to be a sit and duck down the straight, provided that Netrex is as slippery in a straight line as he wants it to be. Keersmakers already going to the wall to defend. Roivers closing. The closer he gets, the quicker he's going to close to the long way round, but Keersmakers just defending enough. But this is a ton of pressure on his shoulders. He's got two cars breathing down his neck, and both of them will want to come through if they see an opportunity.
And these drivers all haven't won a race so far this season, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So they're really fighting for something, as Robin Panzer has done a DNF for this race, which is a bit of a shame for him after some promising pace a bit earlier on. But let's see how this works out for the battle of the race lead. Roivers, that's sort of one thing that's eluded him so far this season. He's been so consistent, but needs to put himself in a position where he's going to be able to get a nice victory. But 2 points is quite crucial, because it means if they drop outside the top three, he'll have to finish 2 places ahead. So this is actually quite good for him. Oh, he's already going in for the pit stop. That is a very early pit stop from Noah Roivers, and that could explain why they were so fast at the beginning point of this race. But him pitting so early means he might have to now take more fuel and therefore have a longer pit stop. So we'll have to see if the overcut or the undercut works. But for now, Keersmakers and Spork have been released from that battle, and they just now need to push hard while they're on lower fuel and try and make a bit of a gap.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's weird because he might not have the gap. You can see he's going to come out probably around about Kevin Moorville and Bale's sort of area. He might come out in traffic. That's not going to help him, of course, as you say, that longer stop. And towards the end of this race, if he has taken tyres, which I don't think he has, I don't think we saw that car go up on the jacks. So, yeah, it's a weird one. This is Zampini on the back of Bale. Pretty textbook move. with DRS to the right-hand side, though. Peo is going to send it under brakes, looking the long way around, but again, just can't quite get the car turning enough. Late enough on the brakes. Again, just couldn't get the front end to stick. And Zampini in towards the top 10 in this race. But yeah, that's an early stop for Roivers. I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out for him. But yeah, it's a longer pit stop. It's heavier fuel, and the tyres are going to be, well, they're going to be colder. He's going to need to get them back up to temperature. As it stands, I think Kismakers and Spork are both going to be looking good. Though Spork has lost a little bit of time to Kismakers. 1.5 seconds now is the gap. So yeah, maybe Spork was relying on Roivers for that DRS to keep him in that train.
Yeah, this strategy is, it is quite interesting. Either that, or he still had fuel left in the tank, so he had less to fill up, maybe. That's also another strategy you can do. But it is a little bit of a weird one. He must have thought that this was obviously going to benefit him in some way, and we'll have to just see what the other two do. They've stayed out, and they are now leading the way from David and Rocek. So Rocek has got past, but actually let's come back to Carlos Martin, because he's going to be going down the inside of Vagianis, but not quite late enough on the brakes this time. So he's going to have to come in behind him there as we come through the S's section. So Martin trying to make a little bit of a move, and he's already only about 4 seconds behind Lopez still, so he's actually done really well. And I think maybe by the end of the race he can actually get back past Lopez, despite them having the little bit of an incident in turn 7 earlier. But let's see now how long it takes him to get past Vagianis, and if it's sort of as hard as it was a little bit earlier with Kevin Morville.
Yeah, the Nerex do seem to struggle to actually get the move done, especially for Martin, but he has driven brilliantly despite having that little bit of an incident earlier on, and he is only a few seconds, as you say, off of Lopez. He just needs to clear this traffic. He is going to look to the right-hand side. How late can he be on the brakes? It's going to be very late, but Vagianis with the momentum around the outside. They've come together. They have crashed. They've both managed to carry on going, but again, that's just more carnage going Martin's way, and Aidan Millward is going to benefit off this. He's not complaining. He's up in towards P5. But for Martin, that was a send under brakes. He launched that curb a little bit, made a bit of contact with Vagianis, and I think, well, they both managed to carry on going. Martin is still very close to the back of Vagianis, and, well, they both want to just sort of get on with it, I think. Luckily, neither of them really ended up facing the wrong way, luckily. But yeah, it was a trip across the grass, and a couple of positions lost for the pair of them. And will Martin, from now on, maybe be that little bit more patient? Will Vagianis maybe give him that extra couple of meters of room?
I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Vagianis is probably going to be a little bit more harsh in his defence to try and make sure that Martin can't try that again down into turn 1. And yeah, it's just one of those things that we've seen multiple times in this sequence of corners at this track and multiple series. Battling side by side through such a tight chicane is so difficult, but let's see what Martin can do on the next lap. Going to the outside, this is going to put him to the inside of turn number 2. If he can brake late enough, and already Vagianis actually backed out of that one. He doesn't want another crash, and Martin is up into P5 as Lopez is into the pit lane. And let's see a replay here. Martin is going to dive it down the inside. This was one lap ago. To be fair, he got his car alongside there, but he just went over the curb way too much. To be honest, actually, I would say that's probably because he couldn't quite get the car stopped, probably broke a tiny bit too late, and it's actually quite poetic how they then came back on the track at the same angle. But back to the front, Kismakers still leading the way. Colin Spork has actually caught up to him quite a lot. But these guys have actually been caught a little bit by Rocek as well, so I wonder if Kismakers is starting to struggle a little bit on the tyres. Obviously, relatively speaking, still setting some pretty good lap times. And let's see how this battle works out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Spork has closed around about a second onto Kismakers, so maybe Rocek, of course, as you say, has closed onto the back of this battle. Spork wants to fight with Kismakers, but at the same time, they need to be staying wary of Roivers, who has pit very early. They are racing with each other, but at the same time, they don't want to lose too much time to those behind. This is Roivers. He is in P8. Aidan Millward has just come into the pit lane from P5. And you can see Colin Spork all over the rear end of Kismakers. He's going to want to go for that move for the race lead, but only if it is easy. It's very easy for well, as we've seen, for something small to go wrong. I mean, it literally was just Martin getting that little bit too jumpy over the curb. I think this is around about the pit window. This is probably where we're going to see the top two around about start to come in. Spork just needs a good run off this final corner. In fact, they both come in. Spork literally followed him, reacted. I think what it was just do what Kismakers does.
Yeah, I mean, as I know, these guys are racing for different teams here, but Spork in this year, 2021, has been an edge esports driver in other competitions as well. So I do wonder if they are sort of working together in some way. But I know that Spork is obviously going to be fighting for this victory. You've already seen that. But let's see what they're going to do in the pit stop. I would assume as they're pitting at the same time, that means they're probably going to be taking the same amount of fuel. So let's see who is going to come off the jacks first. They're going to be changing the tyres as Carlos Martin goes past. Davin Mocek's still out as well. And yeah, look at that, just leaving at the exact same time. There is Noah Roivers getting the slipstream. He's actually going to be going past these drivers into turn number 1. Although actually there, I forgot, you get the little bit of the undercut actually there through turn number 1. So Keersmaker's managed to hold onto that position and actually get ahead of the traffic as well. So this has worked out really badly for Spork, as there's now 2 cars in between him and Keersmakers, where there was just a couple of tenths earlier. But now this is crucial for Roivers to try and get past Morville here to try and have some sort of battle with Keersmakers. But it looks like, just like Carlos Martin, the NetRex cars are just a little bit too slow in a straight line.
I think so. They are really struggling to find a way through, and if Roivers doesn't find a way through on Morville, then Spork is himself going to try and get a way through. And well, it's quite well. Who is that off in the background? Is that it was someone off? Not quite sure who. Yeah, but Mocek finally into the pit lane. Morville, he's not really sort of in this race. I think he's still yet to pit, and he is now into the pit lane. So that's released Roivers and Spork to try and chase after Keersmakers, who got a really good jump. But even after Roivers' sort of weird strategy, it still ends up Keersmakers, Roivers and Spork as it was. But Roivers is under a lot of pressure. Spork closing at a rate of knots in towards turn number 1. Goes the long way around. How late can it be under brakes? It's going to be very late. Roivers twitching under brakes, locking the rears, but around the outside goes Spork into provisional P2. And that was an absolutely beautiful move. Roivers, you saw, tried to brake so late that the car was twitching under brakes. And yeah, that is a beautiful move for Spork, and I think a very important one is that.
Certainly very important indeed, is Aidan Millwood there and Fabian Bala having a nice battle here into turn number 1 and 2. Millwood, very good showing indeed. He lost a little bit of time to Lopez ahead, so if he wants to really get inside that top 6 or so, he's going to need to be doing some improvements. But Bala here also having not too bad of a race indeed. But yeah, for Roivers, that's a very crucial very crucial battle for him, because if this works out to be effectively him in 3rd place, he'll be losing 8 points to Keersmakers, which will, as it stands, put him in 3rd place, which means NetRex won't be getting themselves a seat in Formula Pro, which is obviously quite a big thing, because that you can see just with the amount of drivers that they've put in here, they've really pushed for it. But they might just be falling short, and Roivers already losing a bit of time to Spork. I just wonder if that early pit stop maybe didn't help him, because now he's going to have older tyres while being on similar fuel loads, so it's going to be difficult for him to come back.
It is indeed, and of course that heavier fuel load that he's got compared to everyone else, he spent longer in the pit lane. He just hasn't done himself any favours. Still 18 minutes left to go, still quite a number of laps left in this race, so anything can happen. Yeah, for Keersmakers, he's doing everything he needs to in order to get Edge into Formula Pro himself, and of course one teammate carrying forward. But for NetRex, I think it's almost a robbery. Of course, Keersmakers and Edge do very much deserve it if they do go on to get promoted. But for NetRex, they have driven absolutely brilliantly, and I think it just shows the competitiveness of this series, and how, you know, even some of those who we consider to be at the top of their game, the NetRex drivers, Martin, Roivers and Rainey, they all seem to just fall that little bit too short. But Spork is absolutely flying at this stage in the race, setting the fastest lap as you saw in that previous best. This is Roivers on the back of, I believe this is Morville, in towards turn number 1, looking to the right hand side. This was, I think, maybe as they all sort of come out the pit lane, so close to the rear end though, and yeah, and they all just sort of funneled their way through. That's Keersmakers just in front, and then Spork settling behind, so it wasn't really much in it at all.
I tell you what, it's the little things in racing. And there's Keersmakers there's running over the speed limit sign, because his pit box was so late. I think he had the very last pit box. He actually couldn't really avoid that one. But yeah, it's the little things in racing. Had Morville not been there, Roivers might have been able to battle with Keersmakers there on the exits, and you know, maybe not being held up on the on that lap or two as well. He might have been able to grab the lead there, but instead he's now 3.5 seconds off the lead in 3rd place, rather than be potentially leading the race. And that is how the strategy can be so important indeed. But Keersmakers has got it right so far. He hasn't got himself a speeding penalty like he did at the Nürburgring, so he's looking good to hold on. And I wonder what Spork's going to do. because he's in a very good position to battle for this lead of the race. But Kismakers has looked fast. We've seen that overtaking isn't the easiest thing in the world here, so I wonder just how intensely he's going to battle, or if he's just going to try and hold on for this P2.
I mean, all three of them, Rovers, Spork and Kismakers, all want this race win. None of them have taken a race win so far this season, and they're going to want to do it on the season finale. Kismakers is going to fight this as hard as possible. Spork is quick. He knows he's got the pace. He just set the fastest lap of the race. He knows that. He knows he's going to be quick, and he knows visibly that he is catching Kismakers in front. So as a driver, if you can win a race, you are going to do everything in your power in order to do so. And you know, he's not going to take too many risks, I don't think, but that Team Redline and Spork in general just looks so slippery in a straight line. We saw it when he drove up to the back of Rovers, and just how quickly, even with DRS, Rovers didn't have much to say about it. So Spork definitely in a good position if he can in order to go for this race win. But Kismakers, we've seen when he had two cars on his rear end all over his gearbox, he did manage to fend them off. But at the same time, there's not much he's going to be able to do for that. This is Martin on an absolute recovery drive on the back of Aidan Millwood, a driver who's done incredibly well so far this race. Going defensive, Martin going to go the long way around, squeezing Aidan to the inside. Bit of contact between the two. Aidan's going to have the inside, but Martin brakes later. He's very brave on the brakes, swoops on the outside, and that's Jobsy Gooden up into P6. Martin, to be fair, driving a great race.
Yeah, both of these drivers are, to be honest. Millwood's put himself in such good position to get ahead of that midfield battle. But yeah, Martin, I mean, he really should be up there battling with Mocek for P4. Had that little incident not happened earlier with Lopez Ahona, but now he's about 5 seconds or so behind his nemesis in this race. So let's see if Carlos Martin, in the final 15 minutes of this race, the final third of this race, can catch down the Spaniard and try and battle for that P5. But also the battle to watch out is this battle for the victory. Looks like Colin Spork is actually going to be battling Kismakers this early on. He's not going to be waiting. He's getting very close indeed. And I wonder if we're going to be seeing a move not too far in the future.
Yeah, for sure. He's just going to try and analyse his opponent. I mean, he spent the entire first stint tucked up behind Kismakers. Granted, it was one car behind, but he spent it behind, and he knows where he is potentially quicker. And even just in this stint alone, he knows he's quicker. Look at that closing speed under the brakes. Colin Spork is going to try everything in his power. Just needs to get that good exit. It's down the straights where you need to get the job done. Being quick through the corners is all well and good, and he is actually losing a bit of time. That dirty air sort of getting in the way. The visibility being tucked up behind the car as well does mean you lose a little bit of time. But as long as he gets a good run off this turn 12 and 13 chicane, he should actually look pretty good. Just needs to maximise that exit. You can see taking a nice late apex. Kismaker's definitely going to be looking in his mirrors as they go through the final corner and onto this pit straight. 3/10 is the gap. How much can Sport close? Kismaker's looking in his mirrors, going sort of defensive. He's like, where do I go? Do I go defensive or not? It doesn't look like Spork's going to be quite close enough, but he is eyeing up. In fact, he is going to send it up the inside, locks the rears. Kismaker gives him the room. A valiant effort from Spork. He sort of had to go for that. But wow, that was very late on the brakes. How he got that stopped, I do not know. But this is boiling up to be an absolutely incredible battle, Cam.
Yeah, I don't think he really wanted to go for that, but he was kind of put in the position where he could. So he probably thought, oh yeah, just break a little bit later. But he almost took out Kismakers there. It's so close. But now down into turn 7 on the inside. Spork is going to be doing it. Can he get it stopped this time? Yes, he can. And he's going to take the lead at the round 4 rerun here at Indianapolis. And let's see if he can hold on to this lead. Kismakers, we saw in the first stint, he sort of slowed down a little bit more than some of the other drivers. So let's see actually now if Sport can try and pull away in the final 30 minutes of this race. If Kismakers is going to be able to come back. Sport has been sitting there patiently in P3 all day, but now he's got past Rovers and then again on Kismakers as we see a replay here. Carlos Martin, there's going to be a bit of a wheel banging here with Aidan Millward on the straight there, but fortunately no big issue. And Carlos Martinet getting up into that position, which I believe is about P6 for him at the moment.
Indeed it is. He's only 3 seconds, or about 3.5 seconds off of Lopez, who was the person that put him in this situation where he had to be on the comeback. So yeah, it's not out of the ordinary if we see Martin back into the top 5s battling with Lopez once again. Hopefully this time around they do keep it clean if he does catch, but Kismakers is keeping Spork honest. The gap's staying around 0.5 of a second. So it seems as though whoever's in front is the slower driver. Those behind gets the benefit of the DRS and then can stay on the pace. So they're very equal, and it's just about Kizmakers closing that gap and making sure he can stay there and not allow Spork to get away, because he is heavily reliant on this DRS and on this slipstream to keep him in this race. 12 minutes left to go. Anything is yet to happen, but Kizmakers is going to want to get through in order to solidify P2 in the championship.
So at the moment, so at the moment, Kizmakers and Rovers, there's going to be a 2-point gain for Kizmakers, and at the moment, he's 2 points behind Noah Rovers, which means it will go back to their other results, and I'd have to do a little bit of math to do that, but I believe after all the penalties, I think actually Kizmakers was given the win back in Monza, so I believe on countback, Kizmakers would win because Rovers hasn't had a victory this season. So I believe that is where we're standing at the moment, that if it finishes as it is, Rovers and Kizmakers will be tied on points, but Kizmakers will then win and get that second spot, because David Mocek in P4 is enough to confirm him the other slots. So yeah, certainly very tense, and Kizmakers just needs to make sure he's getting towards the end of the race now, because Rovers has dropped off by a good few seconds.
I mean, maybe Kizmakers is just sitting there. He doesn't need to go for any risk. He knows probably right now he's going to be level on points. He's going to win on countback, and up he goes into pro next season. So at the moment he's chilling, and it's all down to Rovers, in fact, to close the gap and actually put some pressure on. It's Rovers now on the back foot as it stands. So Kizmakers, probably just going to cruise at home for the last 10 minutes. Last probably 8 or 9 laps or so left of the season. Spork leads from Kizmakers and Rovers rounding up the top 3. And Mocek in P4, he's done a stellar job from P8 on the grid. He's just had a sort of a quiet race. He's been there or thereabouts, had a good enough start, just kept it consistent, done his own thing, and he's just sort of trying to drive it home for the championship. It could have definitely very easily not gone his way. If something that happened to Bryce has happened to him, we could be looking at a very different situation right now.
Well, indeed, if he was in a slightly different grid position, then it would have been him who was punted into the wall, and then everything would be different as we enter the final 10 minutes of the season, the first season of the Formula Challenge powered by TraxionGG, and it's shaping up to be an awesome final 10 minutes, but we need to see what Rovers can do. Can he come back? He's dropped off by some 4 seconds, and his pace isn't actually, it's not too bad really. It's pretty much similar to what Kizmakers is doing, but he's obviously just slowly losing that little bit of time, 10th by 10th, and is now almost 5 seconds off the lead. And it looks like for the lead, Kizmakers isn't quite close enough to challenge Spork as we sit at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are going to be battling as we get to the final few laps of this race. So yeah, I think we're certainly building up for a brilliant finish, and let's get a nice replay of how it happened.
Just how late he is under brakes, locks the rears. I think that was sort of just him looking for his braking point and not trying to go into the side of him, and then sort of materialise into move once again, showing that he's the last of the late breakers. Just absolutely launches it up the inside, aims himself at the apex. Luckily didn't mount that curb, otherwise he would have lost control, similar to Martin earlier on. Tucked up in the slipstream, put out very late, just committed as you'd like it under the brakes. It's about confidence. If he'd have sort of gone for it, thought, no, I'm not going to go for that, and then backed out, it could have been a very different story. And it's just about, when you're in that situation, don't doubt yourself. It's better to just absolutely go for it as opposed to back out.
Oh, definitely. You cannot sort of go into these battles with the sort of hesitation in your mind. If once you see that gap, once you have seized your opportunity, you've just got to, as you say, you've just got to go for it. And even if you get to the point where you know you're going to sort of make contact or whatever, it's sometimes better to just stay committed and let it be what it will be, because sometimes if you back out of it, go for a spin, it can make everything worse. But now let's see Carlos Martin. Last time these two battled, it was a bit of an issue, and now Carlos Martin trying to go around the outside of Lopez into turn number 1. Lopez is going to push him wide into turn 2. There's going to be a bit of contact there, but actually Martin managed to slow down just enough. And Lopez once again being very hard on his defence. These two, as we saw, came together earlier into turn number 7, and we're coming up to that corner in just a few seconds' time.
We are indeed. Could we see a bit of deja vu? Lopez going defensive. Martin tucked up in the slipstream. Goes to the right-hand side. Lopez reacts. Going to squeeze him all the way. Breaks way too late. Double front lockup. Goes in deep. So Martin's going to try and go underneath and get the switcheroo, and is ahead. That was a textbook switchback. Very, very good thinking from the Spaniard to get himself back through. But yeah, it literally was maybe a little bit of bad blood between the two, because every time they seemed to go side by side, something happened. Martin having to go to the grass, of course. Yes, he was squeezed, very much so. But yeah, Lopez just got a little bit too eager on the brake pedal. Double front lockup, as we saw. Probably expected Martin to stick around the outside as he always does, and then Lopez just claiming the corner and sort of running him out of track. But this time, Martin said, "You can go in deep. I'm going to go under this way. I'm going to go underneath you. I'm going to go this way through." And he did indeed. And up into the top 5, I think that is a valiant effort from Martin in these closing stages. But the battle for P9 still rages on. Vagianis versus Bab.
Yeah, these battles are coming in thick and fast as we're well into the final 10 minutes of the race of the season. And Vagias, as you say, coming out of the final corner, getting that DRS on Fabian Balla. Can he get himself up into P9? He's actually got some really nice overspeed there, getting himself down the inside. He's going to be overtaking before even the braking zone, but actually he's going to brake a little bit earlier. Fabian's going to have a bit of a thought to come back, but no, Panos Vagianis getting that position, and he's going to be enjoying the bit of clean air in front of him now as well. And we're going to get a bit of a replay here. And this was just so intelligent from Carlos Martin. You saw that Lopez, in the previous corners, was going to brake late, was going to fight it hard. So Martin was like, okay, you do that, you go wide, and I'm just going to cut back, get that track position on the exit of the corner. And yeah, that was a very smart maneuver from Carlos Martin. Unfortunately, it looks like he and his teammate Rovers, as it stands, may not get up into Formula Pro, but certainly a good showing today.
And a good showing all season from the net race guys. I mean, yeah, it's probably not gone their way today, and unfortunately, I think definitely it is down to Rovers today. He played the wrong strategy, I feel. It definitely could have worked out for him, though. It was very marginal, and I think if Morville was out of the equation, he could have actually got a jump, maybe large enough to hold them off. But then again, it's all these shoulda, coulda, woulda in that sense. It's a very different scenario. You can't, sort of blame traffic for it. Rovers should have stayed out with Spork and Keersmakers in order to sort of just be on the same strategy as them. As it stood, he was on course to still get himself in P2 and have that chance for the race victory. But then again, I can see why maybe he wanted to try something different, make it seem like it was, make it seem like an easier job for him. And he could have very easily come out as a hero, but this time, I mean, still P3, a good race around off the season, but he's going to be kicking himself that he's not in P2.
Yeah, but that's just how tight it is. And with the Zandvoort race not counting, only 5 races have counted towards your points total, and it's just so difficult. And to be honest, Rovers is so unlucky, really. He's had such a run of podiums, but that sort of bonus you get for winning effectively is just so great that it's hard to overcome. And Rovers hasn't got that win, which is so important. Rocek has, Schoenvliet has, Keersmakers has, and Spork is close to as well. So that is what's really changed this championship battle, is who can sneak that race win. Because to remind you of the point system, it's 35 points for first, 30 for second, then 28, 27, 26, etc. So once you get third place downwards, it's only 1 point per position, but then obviously for the win, there's 5 points extra. So that's effectively 5 free positions that you're getting. So it's so important to get that race victory. And Keersmakers, with those penalties last time out as well, getting that victory has potentially really changed this championship and who's going to get up into pro.
It has indeed. It has all come down to the final round. We've had our clear contenders. We've had the top 5, 6 in the championship always be up there. And it has been an absolutely thrilling way. Just a thrilling championship battle all throughout this season, especially in the last 2 rounds that I've been on and I have seen. And it's just been so close. You can't leave anything on the table because everyone else around you, all of your championship rivals, will take that opportunity and they will capitalise off it if they see fit. And yeah, it has just been so decisive. We saw in qualifying the top 4 separated by about 1/10.5. That is literally just over a blink of an eye, which in everyday life, 1/10 of a second, you wouldn't ever think twice. It's just 1/10 of a second. But in racing, it just means so much. And even those marginal point gaps, first and second, they're 1 position, but 5 points. That has literally now decided the championship based on countback because Keersmakers got that win in Monza.
Yeah, so important to be getting those results. But to be honest, Spork today, he's deserved this one. And well, I say that he's still a couple of laps to go when commentator occurs him just yet, but he's leading the race now by over 3 seconds. He's really pulled away from Keersmakers. He was sat there behind Rovers Keersmakers in that first stint, just waiting for his opportunity to pounce. And once he's done that, he's got into the lead and he's really started to pull away. Even Mocek there in 4th place, albeit Mocek's probably not pushing to the limit because he's in a comfortable situation with the championship. But he's pulled away by another 5 seconds from him in the midfield as well. So yeah, Spork's done a really good job today. And to be honest, I believe Spork's only 16, maybe 17 years old. Still, very young driver. He's certainly one to look out for, and a very good pickup by Team Redline. So maybe he'll be challenging Reveld and Ziggy for those pro seats at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a great way to end the season. Going into next season, he's going to be, I think, overtaking Rainey, because Rainey won't be scoring any points today. So he will overtake Rainey for P5 in the championship, maybe get himself one higher for P4. Not entirely sure how the points are going to rack up on that one, but he's definitely doing a good enough job to do so. He's just driven absolutely beautifully today. He was in 3rd for pretty much the entirety of that first stint, and we did sort of cast a shadow of a doubt over him and just sort of say, well, he might not be able to get it. It's definitely between Rovers and Keersmakers, but he put himself in that position. And this second stint, he's just been absolutely rapid ever since that first fastest lap he set to get onto the back of Keersmakers, got through very decisively, sent it under the brakes, and hasn't looked back since. He's driven amazingly and is definitely a prospect for the future.
And let's get a bit of a volume up as we get Colin Spork doing the final lap of the race. Well, we hit 0 seconds on the clock, and it's certainly been a very exciting season indeed. And it looks like Colin Spork is going to be taking victory here at the Brickyard for the final race of the Formula Challenge Series. And he certainly deserved that one indeed, with Keersmakers coming second on the road and Rovers not too far behind him. But by our maths, Keersmakers will be winning on countback, with him and Rovers being tied on points. But Mocek there in 4th place will be enough to get the championship and the first ever Formula Challenge champion in this season 1. So it's certainly been a very interesting season indeed. It's been a very chaotic one. There's been so many different little incidents here and there that have really changed around the championship. And at the end of the day, it seems to be those race wins that came out very handy indeed for the likes of Keersmakers and also Mocek as well. As we saw Millward there coming across in P7, good result for him. And then Kevin Morville here in 8th place as well. But Zach, that was certainly a very entertaining final race of the season. It just swapped around. The pit stop was so crucial indeed. But at the end of the day, it was Keersmakers who has just managed to scrape his place into pro.
And it was literally decided by 0 points. And of course, that win that Keersmakers got. And it was very crucial. He's driven a great race today and a great race all season. But you cannot knock Colin Spork at all. Going into next season, I would say he is one of the favourites. He's going to be one of those at the top. I think alongside the Netrex guys, it's going to be an absolutely incredible season, as had this season. I don't think we could have ended it off much better, because we said at the start strategy was going to play a huge factor. And it certainly did. It pretty much decided this race. And while the top 3 just sort of took off and did their own thing, we had some great battles in the midfield as well. And overall, just a great way to end the season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good to see what we actually see next season for Formula Challenge as well. Obviously, with Mocek sort of moving up to pro as well. I would assume maybe Robin Panzar, his teammate in Formula Challenge, I would assume maybe he's going to go up. We'll have to see what Burst decide on that. And then also for Edge, you would assume maybe it's going to be Paresis and Keersmakers going up. Obviously, this is all provisional because obviously there's maybe penalties or whatever that is going to come out after the race. So there's still certainly loads of things that we're going to find out, but that's obviously going to open the door for someone else to come in, and I think it's going to be really good indeed. And the Formula Challenge has been such a great sort of opening to see what we can do with this Formula Pro car. Obviously, this car itself was only released about 3 months ago, and now we've already finished the first season of racing with it, so it's going to be very good indeed from that one. So to be honest, really looking forward to the Pro for season 2, whenever obviously that gets announced, but also Challenge as well, to see which new guy can come up and show us what they've got.
Yeah, that is what Challenge is for. Show us the up-and-coming ranks, and I can't wait to see what Mojek does in Pro, because it's a whole different ballgame. He's obviously done incredibly well, incredibly dominant in such a close and competitive Challenge series, and now next season he's going to really have to prove his mettle and show himself against the big boys, as you could say. So yeah, we've got we've got Challenge and Pro next season, both of which I certainly cannot wait to be watching.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to wait to see when the exact schedule is going to be released, of course, and that's all going to come at some point. So obviously in the next few months, we'll obviously find out all the information for that. But in terms of rFactor 2, we still have obviously the GT series still going. So we're going to be going to GT, the final round actually of the GT Pro Championship, from this same very circuit from Indianapolis next week on Monday, and then on Friday for the final race of the GT Challenge series as well. But let's get a bit of a rundown for the championship. And actually, my maths is bad, because it's saying that Kingsmaker's actually got 3 points over from Rovers there, but obviously we'll wait for final confirmation. It will be confirmed afterwards, after all penalties are sorted anyway. But David Mojek there winning this title by some 10 points, which is actually a pretty good result in the end. Unfortunately, Arne Schoenvliet dropping all the way down there, missing this final race, just shows you how important it is to get all those points on the board. But don't fret, he will come back fighting, I'm sure. And such a shame for Netrex really to miss out, because he and Noah Rovers and Carlos Martin, I think, would have proved a pretty good team in Formula Pro. But Zach, that's just sometimes how racing goes.
It is. It is a harsh world. You can look as comfortable as you possibly could like, but you can never ever get complacent. It's never set in stone when it comes to racing. And yeah, it does, as good as it is, it does, it sets the scene for some really, really big heartbreaks, but it's just going to motivate Netrex that little bit more to come back next season and prove everyone wrong, that they did deserve that promotion into Pro, and that they will come back fighting next year and try and get it. All 3 drivers have driven just impeccably all season long. They've worked together as a team well. They've got the setups. Maybe they probably are going to take a little bit of a look at maybe overtaken or something like that. That could help them into next season. But yeah, Netrex, it's tough, but loss is going to be, well, it's the best teacher. You learn more from your mistakes than you do your victories, and of course, it's the biggest motivator as well.
Indeed, and it's been a great season of racing here for the Formula Challenge series powered by TraxionGG, but that's going to obviously conclude the series and the Formula side of the rFactor action and the esports that we've got at the moment. As I said, we do have the GT series having their final round next week as well, here back at the Brickyard. So that's going to be an exciting venture for those guys, and obviously quite a few drivers racing in both series there as well. So yeah, it's been a great season, and we now have our champions, and it will all be obviously confirmed as well behind went to all the penalties. But as it stands, it should be Edge Esports and Burst Esports getting themselves up into Formula Pro Season 2. Yeah, that's been it for this season, so we thank you for watching, and it's been obviously a great season of action. Still plenty more to come from rFactor 2, so always check out all the information of what's going to be coming in the near future. And until the next event, we wish you a very warm goodbye.